Series. Good morning. Today we are finishing the Great War, chronologically speaking, because next week we are off for Thanksgiving break. All right. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone in advance. I'm wearing a Thanksgiving themed kind of vest that looks like something that is between the color palette is between turkey and hefeweizen. And so I hope you enjoy both of those things and stuffing as well. The good stuffing, not the weird stuffing with the apples in it, like the stuffing with sausage, that version. We are off next week. Is there any bad stuffing at all?
I should not interrupt. That was our stuffing. We have sausage in ours.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's really good. And actually the apple one is good too. Someone made the apple one. Some of my in-laws, I forget who in my in-law family, that side of my wife's family, made apple stuffing. I'm being very disingenuous right now because it's really good. I prefer sausage. I like to mix them both actually. But
I'm starting to feel like an AA meeting.
Yeah. Maybe I have to come to terms with some culinary issues. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone in advance. Next week we are off. What do we have after we come back from the break? Well, if you see on the syllabus, our first lecture back from the break is Blessed Emperor Karl. Talk about him, the Peace Emperor, he who takes over for Franz Joseph when he dies in November of 1916. He is actually not canonized yet, but he's a blessed, and his wife, Zita, they have a beautiful story. On their wedding day, Blessed Emperor Karl's famous quote is like, "Oh, now we have to help each other get to heaven." And it's like that really, like all the marriage prep stuff, people going, when you go through that, whoever has or is or will be, I think that is kind of left out sometimes of like the pre-Cana stuff. It's like, that is right. Like you're supposed to help sanctify the other person. They're a beautiful, beautiful story. And Zita is a servant of God. So she also is in, I think, the lowest tier of the canonization process. Amazing. A cool story. I'll tell you this when we get back. I don't know why I'm wasting time starting 20 minutes late in these diversion stories because we have a lot to cover today, but Zita lived to be 96. She comes back to Vienna in 1985 or something. And she's like regaled, like the whole city comes out to see her. And a beautiful famous story is she goes to this Capuchin monastery and she knocks on the door. Who goes there? Like the abbot, whoever behind the door, and she lists her all her titles, like Zita, Queen of Bohemia, whatever, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Like long list, like Catherine the Great list. And the guy behind the door, the abbot's like, I don't know her. And she goes, Zita, Empress of Austria-Hungary, I don't know her. Zita, a poor sinner, enter. It's really cool. It's like, and I wonder if that was kind of pro forma as you're supposed to do that. Like, I don't know if that was like on the fly or she was instructed to do that. It was cool. It was like, right, like before God, that's what we are, right? Like the state of our soul alone. And both her and her husband were very much exemplar, stalwart Catholic. So that would be one of the most Catholic lectures of our entire World War I class, because it's at the Augustine Center. Anyone watching online, maybe in the post-apocalyptic America 35 years from now, finding this found footage. Why am I talking so much about Catholic stuff on the Great War? Because we're at a Catholic center in Moscow, in what used to be Moscow, Idaho, in what used to be the Pacific Northwest of the former United States of America. That's why I'm giving this background information. The only perhaps more Catholic lecture we've had the whole semester is Our Lady of Fatima, perhaps, right? After that, we'll talk about the Spanish flu. Guys, if we have time today, and I think we will, I'm going to show you, I made a really cool slideshow for the Spanish flu lecture, comparing side by side. Sophia, what? Like, Sophia's like, oh, like, I doubt it.
I'm like, is this going to be like serious content, or is this going to be more of like a silent?
Yeah,
you know what? A very fair point. You're right. That's a very wow. Oh, really? Because I haven't made stupid films. Oh, wait, I do that all the time. Like, you're right. It's very serious. And I will show you all at the conclusion of class, because I can't wait, just side by side, where it's like our response to COVID has been exactly the Spanish flu in terms of public health measures. The guy who was the Dr. Fauci at that time looks exactly like Fauci. It's really creepy. His name is TD Tuttle. I'm dead serious. I can't wait. It's really
his name?
TD Tuttle, I think, something like that. Yeah, great name too. Touchdown, Tuttle.
Tuttle
The turtle. I watched last diversion. I watched this really awkward show on Netflix yesterday. Kate and I did together, where this guy goes and he helps people with their business. And
is that a Nate?
Have you heard this? Have you seen this?
I've seen a couple of episodes.
It is so awkward. The guy's amazing.
Yeah,
You've seen it too?
I've seen stuff like clips.
What clip did you see?
I don't remember. I just saw sort of on YouTube.
He goes to this interview and he like sits in this thing with this serious law firm, and kudos to the guy, he pulls it off brilliantly. In his ear, he has a 7-year-old kid telling him this stuff, and he has to repeat that. And the lady's like, so why do you think you'd be a good addition to our firm? And he literally says, like, because the kid tells him, like, because I want to get all the bad guys. And then the next question, like, do you like skateboarding? And she's like, what? He's like, do you like skateboarding? And she's like, I asked about your accomplishments. And she's like, I don't understand what that word means. Can we move on? Like, so he exits later, like, based on the this mock interview, would you hire me? And she of course says no. He goes to a different interview and it's a guy now, like a Dave Schmidt, adult who's going to say really awkward stuff. And he says all this stuff and the guy gets really offended. Like the first thing comes in, he's like, oh, the lawyer, he's like, my name is West Jones. West, like the direction, right? And in his ear he goes, ha 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 ha. And it just goes so down. But the worst part is he comes in and he's like, can I get a job interview based solely on confidence? And he's like, the last person telling him instructions is a literal turtle. So he comes in and he sits down and you initiate the conversation. He's like, but he doesn't say a word because the turtle doesn't speak. And the guy's like, I was nervous too when I was in job interviews and whatever. And finally, like, it goes well somehow. He never says a single word because he can't. Like turtle just stands in the microphone and does turtle stuff. Like doesn't make any noises. I don't know if turtles make noises or not. Like they retract into their shell. I don't know if they make noises. But he just sits there the whole time. And finally the guy, like, I guess it goes good. And he brings him in. He's like, this is who you just hired. He puts a turtle on his desk. You have to admit, if I brought a turtle to class, that turtle is an objectively like safe animal, right? No one will be creeped out. Like if I brought, like, here's my pet tarantula, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, or something like that, or like a dog, people love dogs, but like if someone brought a turtle to class, it's not even like you have to, everyone's cool with that, right? Because I have a bunch of turtles. Wonder if I should bring one. Okay. All right, let's get started. So for people on Zoom, I guess, I don't know, this is my left hand, above my left hand, that side of the board. I don't know if it's your left or your right in the Zoom virtual reality, but this is what we're talking about. Beginning at AB on the top, all right, which is German Spring Offensive. And then B, American entry 1918, and then C, Armistice Day, November 11th, 1918. We're gonna go through this point by point. All right. The first thing you have to realize is, and the reason I put all this on the board today, I think a couple of things inspired me to do this. The forthcoming Thanksgiving break, this is our last lectures for 10 days, let's put it all on there. And as I was saying earlier, when we come back, we have these thematic lectures. This is the end of the war chronology. So as you saw in the ultimate header from last class, 1918, East and West, the final year of the war. But these things, they're always connected throughout the chronology, as you know that. I don't have to tell you that by now. But these are especially connected because of the smashing German victory in the East in the wake of Operation Fist Punch, which is actually the name, as you covered last class. It's not a joke. It sounds like the joke I would make up, but it really is called Operation Fist Punch. Those 11 days of complete subdual of the what's left of now the Bolshevik army, the former Russian army, right? The revolution has already taken place. The capture of Kiev and Minsk really quickly. Remember, how are these two things super connected? In the obvious fashion that the soldiers, all those divisions that lead to victory on the Eastern Front, are immediately, poor guys, after all this fighting, you think we won in the East, maybe we get a reward now. Maybe like, what would pass for a reward at that time? How about like an actual bed, not sleeping in a trench, and maybe a meal, right? Just simple, you can't even call them creature comforts. Again, God bless them. Just the simplest kind of basic things that we take for granted, sadly now. They're not given that. They're put on a train and immediately sent to the West to help the Germans win all of the war. That's at least their hope. And that's what commences a German Spring Offensive, begins March 21st, 1918. Okay? The German Spring Offensive, the last true German try, you can say. We haven't covered this before. This will be cool, and I'm going to do this off the top of my head, kind of with you guys. But let's look at what have been some big German tries throughout this war. By that I mean moments when they've really tried to just like do fist punch style. The fist punch is the big successful one. By try, I mean aiming for a knockout blow, a decisive kind of let's end the war now, right? This is going to be the last one, I would argue, the Germans are able to muster. The first one, of course, is how the war begins. The first German try, honestly, of course, is the Battle of the Frontiers. Is the aim, the goal to repeat that which successfully took place 44 years earlier in the Franco-Prussian War. At that point, you remember our guy von Moltke, right? He resigned September 9th, 1914. This is taking us way back. But von Moltke and all of the old guard and his uncle, and Schlieffen, he died in, I think 1905, but his grand plan to go through neutral Belgium really quick, maybe even through the Netherlands and take out, neutralize France before Russia can mobilize, blah, blah, blah. All of that lead up. That was the first great German try. The Germans don't start the war walking on eggshells. They start going for total victory. And remember, one of those commanders, I think he was the commander of the First Army, Alexander von Kluck, who was like a soldier, like bald-headed, really scary Bond villain looking guy who literally like stomped the ground and like, yeah, get him and fight. Like he was really angry because he said, victory was in our sights. And there was this miscommunication, right? And then again, von Moltke has this nervous breakdown. They're not able to, they at one point kind of loop around Paris instead of going towards Paris. I don't know if you remember, but from the earlier lectures, at one point in the Battle of the Frontiers, after a month of success of occupying Antwerp, Brussels, going through Belgium, the Germans have Paris in their sights. The war is going to be over and they kind of veer off, right? The German soldiers who are so exhausted see Paris 40 kilometers away and think this is our chance. The war is going to be over. We're going to do the exact same thing our grandfathers and fathers did, 40 years earlier. That's the first try and fail. Another great try and fail is Jutland, right? We've been doing the submarine warfare. Again, I'm not a fan of the Navy. And I say that with obviously, God bless all our men and women who serve. I don't mean that. I mean historical interest. I find army battles insanely interesting. Diplomacy, like I want to eat it, like a dessert. Navy, boring, just wow, in the water. This is so immature and stupid and juvenile. I'm admitting that. I just don't find naval battles that interesting at all. Despite all that prejudice from my end, the Battle of Jutland is unbelievably important, right? Because the Germans have been doing the submarine warfare. They sank the Lusitania, the Sussex Pledge, the Zimmermann Telegram, all these kind of things. Well, in the middle of all that, and like, how do we not tick off the Americans enough to have them do what they eventually do, what we're going to talk about today, and really come in on the side of the Allies? The Germans try to break the blockade, and they fail again. That's a big German try that comes to naught. You can say another big German try that leads to the personal dismissal of Falkenhayn in the West is Verdun. What did Falkenhayn famously say about Verdun in 1916? Remember, very tragically, very sad on a human level.
Is it like the one about like leading the French white?
I swear I'm not trying to be nice, because I do really love all you guys. Like, I feel like it's a nice family. Sophia, you are really, really brilliant, for real. Like, total legit compliment, not fake. Like, oh, you're so cool. Seriously, you're a genius. Like, that's awesome. You remember that. Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly what he said. I want to bleed the French army white. This is really sad on the human level, because what he's saying is I want to kill a bunch of people. This is terrible. God rest their souls. The Verdun and the Somme, 2.2 million casualties of 1916. It's awful, right? It's very sad. Dom, you have a question. You're just stretching. I do that often myself. The stretch question. I can go either way. Often I've had a question, mid-stretch realized, ooh, question answered. Then I respond, I was just stretching, which is not true. I had a question, but it's no longer necessary to be posed, and I don't pose it at that point. That also fails. Falkenhayn gets transferred down to the south, you can say, as a successful campaign against the Romanians, but whatever. The real kind of amazing try success, and that this is being awkwardly phrased, the try, but like I actually like that, where I think it's appropriate for what is actually happening. The first real successful try for the Germans of the war, despite all their victories in these small battles, they're always having less casualties. Look how well they're defending against like the Nivelle offensive at the Hindenburg line, is fist punch. So now we arrive, that's kind of the background. Now we arrive at the spring offensive. But before I really dive into March 21st, 1918, when it begins, final background is Germans have this thing called Strasstruppen or stormtrooping, or as you can just, it's basically the same word in English, just stormtroopers. All right. I am not a Star Wars fan at all, 0%. My apologies to whoever's offended. But in Star Wars, the white guys, right? The all white dudes who are they're bad guys, right? They're the stormtroopers. They have-
Except Darth,
they're Darth Vader's, yeah.
but I mean, he's not white.
He's not white. Yeah, he's all in a black suit, but his stormtrooper guys are white guys. Yeah. White costume. White costume guys. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that that the stormtroopers in Star Wars are based off of this. George Lucas, in addition to having so much kind of like religious symbolism and stuff in Star Wars, you guys have no idea how much the great art of the 20th century is influenced by this. Tolkien wrote his Lord of the Rings and Mordor and all that stuff based in this experience. I think he was in the war, actually. I don't know what he did, but I know he was alive during the war. I think he actually served in some capacity. I don't know what he did, but and I apologize for not having that information. But the stormtroopers are what? Okay, what do you think the stormtroopers are? Someone give me some. I'm gonna give you the background, but someone help me out. What do you think the stormtroopers do? Anyone know? Well, they're this. Ludendorff says, we hate trench warfare. Trench warfare sucks. It's just endless attrition. We can't go out over no man's land. This doesn't work. They just walking across Somme style, getting mowed down with machine guns, whether it's us or them, this sucks. Attrition sucks. Falkenheim, bleed them white, doesn't work. So it's going to be first, number one, limited targeted attacks. Dom, yes, go ahead.
So their purpose is they would run ahead of the main force to punch holes at weak points in the French and British lines, and then they could cut off their supply lines, and then the rest of the force comes in and just mops up.
Brilliant, perfect. Brilliant answer, very complete answer, excellent use of an exact term of punching a hole. So Ludendorff says these guys are, first, number one, limited target attacks, not attrition. They are the cream of the crop. They're the best. Let me tell you this now and try to forget later. Operation Michael starts off awesome for the Germans. Why are they going to lose when the Americans come? Because not only has this last offensive been stymied, who is everyone being killed for the Germans? Their best guys. Yeah, let's double that. It's awesome to send the stormtroopers ahead. Like if Sophia and Becca, they're the best like soldiers we have, their units. That's great when they go, because they give us the best chance of victory. But it's it's all in, pushing your chips to the table. If we win, great, they're the best soldiers. But if they get killed, then not only do we fail, now also other soldiers are not as good as them. So it's all or nothing thing. That makes sense, right? Like Dom said, their job is to do coordinated attacks. They've been specially trained. Leading up to this, all these cream guys, and who are the cream guys? They're probably going to like look at the most physically fit, strongest. Maybe they're even timing them like who can run the fastest, most endurant, who's maybe firing a gun the fastest. Little like just obviously things we can measure. Who's best with weapons, fastest, most physically fit. They're pulled out of their units like in the winter leading up to this and given special training and given special weapons, special pistols, flamethrowers, things like that. And as Dom perfectly said, I have nothing to add to that. They're going to go ahead, number one, literally isn't like, not just go ahead like you guys go, I mean ahead like avant-garde, they're going to be in the first line, and hopefully secretly, because they're smaller units, they won't be shot to pieces in the no man's land because they can be stealth, they're like stealth fighters, you almost like Bond, you can even say agents, or like Navy SEALs, you know, can continue all these examples, it's kind of that thing, the best, SEAL Team 6, whoever got Osama bin Laden, that's like, those are stormtroopers, and they're going to punch through the holes, and once they do that, right, then we can send in the normal army and the overwhelm. That's how it's supposed to work anyways. One of these guys, Oscar von Houtier, he talks about this, about what the stormtroopers should do. I'll give you 4 things. How the stormtroopers should work within German philosophy in this last offensive. A short artillery bombardment employing heavy shells mixed with numerous poison gases will first neutralize the front lines. Not try and destroy them, Houtier says, just quick punch with artillery, neutralize them. 2, under a creeping barrage, we all know what creeping barrage is now, stormtrooping would then move forward in dispersed order. They would avoid combat whenever possible, infiltrate the Allied defenses at previously identified weak points and destroy or capture points. Exactly like Dom said. 3, then, once the stormtrooping have succeeded, double success. We've neutralized them with the gas shells, stormtrooping punch holes. 3, infantry battalions with extra light machine guns, mortars, flamethrowers would mop up. And in the last stage, number 4, regular infantry comes in. I'm not going to say anything else because that is very concise. That makes perfect sense. That's just very simple. First shells, then best soldiers, then other soldiers, then everybody. Okay, that's what it's gonna be. The spring offensive commences with something on March 21st, 1918. I'm now through A1, A6, by the way, my numerals, which mean nothing. They're just notes for me where to read on my notes. The spring offensive, or the Kaiserschlacht, Kaiser's battle, Ludendorff offensive, whatever you want to call it, or the ultimate code name, Operation Michael, after the Archangel, commences on March 21st, 1918. Because the Germans, A1, realize their only remaining chance to win is just to go bonkers and end the war now. Before who arrives, I don't have to even tell you, I think you already know. A2, within Michael, though, there's going to be four main offenses. Michael is one of main four offensives that make up the whole German spring offensive. This last try, as I just told you, they are codenamed Michael, Georgette, Gneisenau, Blucher, York. I want to make an apology to all feminists right now. Really, if you're a feminist, you might want to leave. If you'd be offended by this, you might be. Dead serious, this isn't a joke. That latter part is a joke about being offended, but the first part is actually, listen. They originally named it Operation Michael, and the second one was going to be Operation George, St. George, says the dragon. But when they realized, oh, the offensive kind of sucks, they decided, let's name it Georgette. Dead serious. I am dead serious. They're like, let's make it smaller, so it's like a woman. Yeah, like really sexy.
Joan of Arc aside, but you know.
Joan of Arc aside, so badass, yeah. But they literally like are like Saint Michael, yeah, he slays Satan. On the Saint Michael, I pray to Saint Michael every day. That Saint Michael prayer is a beautiful prayer that Leo XIII has to say after Mass. Michael is so awesome, and Saint George is cool too. They're like, it's gonna be Saint Michael, the fiercest captain of the angels, fierce archangel, and then Saint George. Oh, it's a little smaller. Let's call it Georgette. Dead serious. I'm dead serious.
St. George is huge in Germany.
Well, they kind of demoted him. They demoted him, put your girl Georgette in. Who apparently was good at bar dancing. That was they said.
Oh.
Someone I saw yesterday driving to Moscow, they had a little like a little thing around their license plate. I'd rather be bar dancing. I thought it was like, really, like that's like your thing. Like bar dancing is probably fun. I've never done it. It's probably fun. I know we had a bar dance in Colfax. I considered going to that like 0%, like not even for a second. Yeah, you know, just gonna be honest. Really cool idea though. But I thought like, really, you'd rather be doing that? Like you want like, I'd rather be like swimming in a pile of money. That's what we need to ask. One thing, make you seem like the worst, grimiest oligarch. I'd rather be counting gold coins in a bank. Like, all right. So A3. This is kind of overall information. The idea is the Germans will quickly punch these holes, overwhelm, and they'll do all this stuff before the Americans arrive. But A3, guys, is they find something called stagnation in their plans. This is the whole George to Georgette in motion. Because a lot of the land, please note this, in the spring offensive is worthless. It's been so torn up by the last 4 years of fighting. There's nothing left, including the Germans themselves with their kind of scorched earth stuff. And they pull a British move, you can say in a certain sense. The stormtroopers maybe are so good, victims of their own success, they get overextended, they can't be supplied, and they're just kind of holding indefensible, worthless land. So Michael, that starts off with all this high hope and all these divisions, there's been nearly 50 divisions of men transferred from the Eastern to the Western Front. It peters out kind of pretty quickly when the Germans realize, okay, the stormtroopers are making a lot of progress, but unfortunately they're getting killed. So we're losing our best men. And what we're occupying isn't helping us really. The Allies are kind of retreating and falling back. There's a lot of scorched earth, nothing land here. It's not strategically valuable. We're not now making this massive push on France, or we've crossed the channel or attacking London. It's just kind of all the torn up land that we've held, the trenches. And so it becomes kind of what is known as a Pyrrhic victory, right? You've heard this term before. Kind of the ultimate idea of a Pyrrhic victory is like Brusilov. Like you win and you guys won. The ultimate one, maybe Passchendaele. Passchendaele is a British victory, technically. It's also where the British army died in the mud of Passchendaele. Like it's like, so here, this is kind of like Brusilov, the same lessons of Brusilov. The Germans in the beginning of this offensive of Michael win a lot. They're strategically successful, but they're losing their best men and nothing's being accomplished. And what's number one against them? What's the number one German enemy now? Someone help me out. Only the most brilliant people. Please weigh in. What is the number one German enemy right now? Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. That is their ultimate enemy. if things continue on in that word I just used, stagnation, they are definitely going to lose because the Americans are going to show up as, spoiler, they do. Their ultimate enemy is time. Fist punch was awesome. Fist punch was 11 days to get the Russians out. They need fist punch too. They need Operation Michael to have the French begging for surrender terms by April. So when the Americans come, it's already past. The Americans turn around mid-boat over the ocean. War is over, guys. Sorry. Time is the ultimate enemy.
Help me, why? Why now is time? They're running out of resources, et cetera, or
They're
what?
definitely running out of resources like all people, because the Americans are entering. The Americans have already declared war in April 1917. And remember, Pétain famously said, I'm waiting for the tanks of the Americans. He was more willing to kind of conserve resources, especially human resources, not send people in crazy attacks. Time is a problem because people know the Americans are going to show up. The Americans, I'll tell you right now, a couple of things about them, about us, and I'm going to talk about this in these battles, but the Germans, when they face the Americans, in typical German understated fashion, they're like, these Americans are quite reckless fellows. Like the Germans right away, like the Americans are badass soldiers. Like they are not afraid, they're crazy actually. They're all like Chuck Norris types. They just do stupid stuff that's bad. And in the German war school, the Germans had spent the latter part of the 19th century, they're getting very militarized post Franco-Prussian War, reading about what conflict specifically. What are they obsessed with? The Germans are obsessed about two things in their military schools vis-a-vis America. What two things? Yeah, if you haven't noticed, the Germans are like really smart, right? People. So they like know the American Civil War better than the Americans even. They know all about the American Civil War. They're like, dang, that was crazy. Like that was a crazy war, but they studied all these famous battles. Like Appomattox is the final surrender. Antietam, Gettysburg, Vicksburg, the sieges, the Battle of Shiloh. By the way, advertisement for my class. You learn all about this in the spring if you take my Civil War class. They've studied all this stuff, and they're like, Americans are pretty crazy. Also, wow, the Americans, this is a side note, the Americans, the average farmhouse in America has more guns than like a German battalion. That's pretty scary. So the Americans are crazy people who fought this insane civil war that we've grown up on the legend of. They love guns in America. Did I mention, by the way, they love guns and have a lot of guns? That's what the Germans are saying. And what's the third thing? The second thing, America is the Wild West. We all know about Wyatt Earp and High Noon. So Germans think the Americans are like not to be effed with people who are serious people. They built this great country, but they're also all psycho gun owners. Just total redneck right-wing gun owning people. What's good is that this stereotype is no longer with us. No, the world does not look at Americans like this now.
Even though it's still true.
But no, I would say no one thinks that. I've never heard anyone talk about America as this land of like cowboy gun owning right-wing fanatics at all. The fact that James Bond in Skyfall and James Bond, the woman makes a quip that some gun nut from Idaho literally bought a bunch of guns, didn't resonate at all because that didn't make any sense. I'm joking, right? All day long. LMAO, yeah. And you can add your different letters if you want as well. The Germans are scared of the Americans. They're coming. That's why time, Sophia Perfect, is not on their side, because these Americans who are all cowboy Civil War gun owning fanatics are going to show up, and that will be very problematic for us. And America is a country on the rise. They're going to bring a bunch of people. They're all fresh. They're not embittered by 4 years of trench warfare. That's why time is not on their side. A4. The German army made the deepest advances either side had made on the Western Front since 1914. They took back a lot of the ground they previously had controlled, even new ground. But despite the success, they suffered heavy casualties in exchange for land that held little to no strategic value. There's your answer. The Germans, if World War I is a football game, the Germans won World War I 85-40, 65-20. But lost on a technicality, having to forfeit. So like the Germans, in terms of less casualties, better tactics, taking more land, it's just, again, this is the German story throughout the war. If the story throughout the war, I hope I've convinced you by now, that the story of the war for like the British was like, unfortunately, just these human wave attacks, right? And holding land and falling back and failure. And France, the story is like attrition, bravery, out of bravery, just lose everyone. And Russia is a complete mess, from Rasputin to the Tsar. The German story is amazing success, but that often doesn't count in a sense. Like they're winning, but they never can make it count. Same thing here. Okay, Blah, 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 blah.
In the east, while this is going on, in the east, what's happening there? I mean, Russia was presented.
Lenin had gotten the people in his command to accept the treaty before the terms got even harsher, and they're just going to work on their own internal stuff, which becomes one of the most evil displays of kind of human violence, fratricidal civil war, genocide. But the Russians are going to try to just focus on their own business. That's what's happening in the East.
So they kind of
They've
recoiled.
not recoiled. They've laid on the ground, got in a fetal position, and started literally crying like a baby. You guys see how much we surrendered. Like they've completely they're done.
Okay.
They're surrendered. The Germans have won massive victory in the East. All those lands like Ukraine, the Baltic states, what is now Poland is under German occupation, like Belgium. Germans have just, if the war ends now, the Germans like the German Kaiserreich goes from like this size to that size. And again, like you can't stress enough how much the Germans won the war. They just lost the ultimate thing when it finally mattered at the end. You have to forfeit all that and Versailles and all that kind of stuff that comes later on. The intention of this Michael, and Georgette and these things was to, similar thing, you're going to be surprised to hear this, not at all, break through the Allied lines, roll up the flank of the British Army from the south, push against the Channel. This is the whole thing from the beginning, right? The Schlieffen plan still trying to do that, still trying to outflank the opposition, still trying to get above Ypres, where the trenches were hardened, the final blow. It starts off very, very good, okay? It starts off very good. There's this guy I want you to know, his name is George Bruchmüller, Bruchmuller, Bruchmuller. Bruchmuller, how would you pronounce his name? Is that okay? Is that passable?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You're my German authority, so if you say it's okay, that's good enough for me. He was named Breakthrough Bruchmüller because he was really good artillery. He was a really good artillery officer, and he does a very good. Creeping barrage. The stormtrooper guys work. They break through. They capture a lot of land. Again, this is early Michael. This is March, early April 1918. But as we talk about, the gains are not going to be able to be held. Let's talk about it in more detail, though. This is A5.1, A5.7. On March 21st, 1918, the artillery bombardment begins at 4:40 in the morning. This is George Bruchmüller, Breakthrough Bruchmüller, over a target area of 150 square miles, the biggest barrage of the war. This even outstrips, remember the opening of the Battle of Verdun, all those shells in February 1916, 1.1 million shells fired in 5 hours. Okay, this is the ultimate try. This is the ultimate fist punch to try. In a very understated way, for the British, the weight of the attack and of the preliminary bombardment was an unpleasant surprise, you think? And the stormtroopers were able to be even more successful, not only because they're the cream of the crop, but they were able to penetrate deep into British positions undetected because that morning was foggy. So everything starts off in Operation Michael in the spring offensive positive for the Germans. By the end of the day, they had penetrated, broke through. Dom, brilliant, the Ruprecht, the Crown Prince of Bavaria, states, quoting Dominic, "We chop a hole, the rest follows." Exactly as he said, this is the point. And that happens. However, things will get bogged down pretty quickly because listen to this. Despite the success of Operation Michael, the German infantry advance is too far from its supply bases and railheads. Okay, and the stormtrooper units that lead the advance are only able to carry supplies for a few days. Why? Because you have to travel light to travel fast and undetected. And therefore the advance is slowed by supply shortages. The Allies, please note this. I think I've talked about Operation Michael like 9 times now, right? Back and forth. I'm talking about it again. I think you got it right now. Full try, full barrage, great success early, bogs down. I think everyone got that, right? You got it, Kraszewski. Well, what you haven't heard yet is the Allies react to all this going on here by appointing Ferdinand Foch, F-O-C-H, as Supreme Allied Commander over everyone. This is the first time in the war, finally, that we're no longer Monsieur Marshal, the honor of France is at stake. Remember when Joffre is pleading with, I think his name was French, ironically, the British commander at the beginning of the war to help out, and they have to coordinate stuff. Foch is giving supreme command even over General Douglas Haig, which is he probably, not being a guy with huge ego, probably was totally cool with taking orders from a French guy, especially because the British like the French so much. This is okay. Finally, we're going to try to have some kind of coordinated plan. We're going to be the Allies finally coming into being. After a few days, the German advance begins to falter. Ludendorff has to call off Operation Michael on April 5th. So here's what I want you to know. This is the opposite of fist punch. Fist punch was February to March, 11 days, and success. And Hoffman, the German general in the East, is writing a note. This is a joke. All we have to do is send Dave Schmidt and his battalion to the next station. They just surrender. The guys hand them their guns. They get a box of chocolates. It's the stupidest defense ever. It's great success. Here, they try an even greater barrage. I mean, here's where maybe, no offense, but maybe the quality of the French and British defense in comparison to the Russians is evident. The Germans just send some guys out in the East and they win. Here they try everything, 1,000,000 shells, and they still can't break through. So kudos to the brave defense of the French and the Germans, who, unlike the Americans, are not tired, are not embittered. They've been in trenches for 4 years, and look how they're still holding on. Ludendorff calls off Operation Michael April 5th. Here's interesting. Here's where you see finally some changing stuff. The Allies lose 255,000 men. Often when I say that, I would say in the past, like the battles of Champagne, Allies lost 255 and the Germans lost 80. Remember those numbers? Here the Germans lose 240. It's basically equal. They can't afford that. When they were winning by a 4-1 margin, they still weren't able to break through. They can't afford it to be equal, especially with the Americans coming. And as I said, many of these 240,000 men are stormtroopers who are irreplaceable. Who beforehand, if we lost men on an equal basis, every casualty would have, let's say 100 men killed, 19 stormtrooper qualities, 81 normal soldiers. But you still have 1981 over here. Now it's all the stormtroopers are putting in one. It's literally putting all your eggs in one basket, and that basket is breaking apart. Georgette, which is supposed to be George. Georgette now demoted and very sexist. Starts on April 9th. All right. Haig issues a famous order, General Haig, on April 11th, 2 days after the Germans start Georgette. Which remember, Georgette follows Michael. They're both part of the German Spring Offensive. This is A71 for those counting on the board. Haig issues an order of the day, quote, "With our backs to the wall and believing the justice of our cause, each one of us must fight to the end. Every man hold his ground to the last." This is very much reminiscent of Ataturk on the beaches of Gallipoli. Remember when he says, I don't order you to win, I order you to die. Haig is saying, like, you must hold this position. You must hold it. They do. Lord Ludendorff will end Georgette April 29th, 20 days later. So far the German Spring Offensive is 0 for 2. As with Michael, the losses are equally rough, 100,000 each. That's bad for German strategy. I'm going to cover A9, A8, A8, A9, A10 super fast. A11 is the analytical part. Blucher York of A8, this new position, then followed by Gnezau. And then the Second Battle of the Marne. All you have to know is it's the exact same thing that we talked about with Michael and Georgette. Same idea, letting it all hang out, full creeping barrage. By these points, though, by the latter part of the Spring Offensive, there's no stormtroopers left to do the infiltration tactics. We're down to our normal things. So the Kaiserschlacht in an A11 analysis, this Operation Michael, Spring Offensive, beginning on March 21st, yields large territorial gains for the Germans in First World War terms. Some of the best stuff. But as I told you before, in 6 months, the German army falls from 5.1 to 4.2 million men. The Germans lose almost 1 million men in 6 months that they cannot replace, many of them the best trained stormtroopers. And my friends, American troops were for the first time being implemented into the Allied plans now when the Spring Offensive ends. What are some analytical points? P2 lecture, 5-point fail. Why does this fail? Probably going to be repetitive again, but good. I hope I hit you over the head enough with this, that you get why the Spring Offensive, the last try of the German army, fails. Point number 1, the initial attack was against the British section of the front, which was most strongly held. They didn't listen to General Dom. Dom said correctly, punch a hole in the weak parts. The stormtroopers tried to punch against the strongest parts. If it's a one shot, you have to punch a hole and give them in. You should choose the weakest, most undefended part, because that'll be guaranteed to go through. We'll have a shot. They go where it's, they're picking on someone their own size. That's bad. 2, the leading units were not relieved or rotated, became exhausted. 3, terrain contained many rivers, towns, forests, and canals, which slowed the advance. I haven't talked about that yet. That's another reason the offensive fails. Not only is the land wrecked by artillery fire and kind of scorched earth, there's also some natural obstacles, topographical obstacles. Point number 4, the 1918 influenza epidemic is starting to come into being. Even people don't know why that person's coughing and bedridden. This horrible wave, which is soon coming, starting to hit. And 5, the capture of British stuff contains a large quantity, often large quantities of alcohol. Quote, not for lack of the German fighting spirit, but on the account of the abundance of Scottish drinking spirit. Ha ha ha. But yeah, are the German soldiers so angry and bitter, pissed at their commanders? I'm just gonna get plastered. I'm just gonna drink all this French wine because F this, I'm done with this war. Well, that's bad for organization and tactics. Your soldiers are drunk and hungover and vomiting the next morning, and maybe infected with the flu too. A lot of those things also factor into the failure of the war effort. Let's talk about the Americans. Let's talk about us. All right. So, American entry 1918 post-German Spring Offensive. What is the AEF? The AEF stands for the American Expeditionary Forces, Formation of the United States Army Western Front, established on July 5th, 1917 in France under the command of General Blackjack Pershing, John J. Pershing. No relation to Donald J. Trump. In case you're wondering, does the J mean they're related? The answer is no. Okay, when did the Americans start getting really involved? Well, the Third Battle of the Aisne, 27 May to 6 June 1918, the Americans are getting involved. Okay, the battle marks one of the first instances where an appreciable, meaning a significant number of American troops participate and prove themselves in combat. All right. Despite penetrating Allied lines by approximately 55 kilometers, coming closer to Paris than at any point since the Battle of the Frontiers, because of the American hold the Battle of the Aisne, the Americans prevent, in some ways, the first like go America moment, prevent the Germans from threatening Paris all the way through. They hold off the Germans. The Germans suffer for the first time, one of the rare times in the war, even more casualties. Not the first time. There have been some examples, but talk about appreciable, a good word. The Allies have about 127,000 casualties, the German 130,000, and the Americans are now fully involved. The Americans who have been formed the previous year, who had already declared war in April. Now, by May, June 1918, here comes America. Belleau Wood. Star. I think it's more important than Chateau Thierry. I think it's just the most important battle in American history, arguably, perhaps. And I have so many B's around this. B 3.1 to B 3.9. So 9 points about this. Battle of Belleau Wood is 1 to 26 June. And if you're like, why are you doing it in European style? Okay, fine. June 1st to 26th. Is that better? You guys, okay, calm down. Next, I'll be arguing for implementation of the metric system. Everyone relax. June 1st to 26th, all of June 1918. All right, near the Marne River in France, battle fought between the U.S. 2nd and 3rd divisions, along with British and French forces. The battle has been a key component of the lore of the United States Marine Corps. Okay. Let me see.
Would you say that again? Key component of what?
U.S. Marine Corps. Like the lore of the U.S. Marines, what the Marines do in this battle, like the legend of the Marines.
Oh, the allure.
The allure, exactly.
Yeah.
The mythology. The mythology. Lore is an L-O-R-E, like the fable, the mythology, the kind of origin story, right? General Pershing. This is point 3, number 9. Okay, this is the last point after Belleau Wood finishes. Play what happens to Belleau Wood, but this says it all. Pershing, who's the commander of the AEF, the American general, says, the deadliest weapon in the world is a U.S. Marine and his rifle. Pershing also said, quote, the Battle of Belleau Wood was for the U.S. the biggest battle since Appomattox. Appomattox Courthouse is where General Robert E. Lee surrenders to General Ulysses S. Grant on Palm Sunday, 1865, and ends the U.S. Civil War. There is no World War II yet. There is no Greatest Generation. Duh. For Americans, the Civil War is the great war of American history, maybe even bigger than the Revolution. So Pershing is saying this one battle, Belleau Wood, even outstrips our great Civil War. Greatest battle since Appomattox and the most considerable engagement American troops have ever had with a foreign enemy. Even more than fighting Cornwallis at Yorktown, even more than Battle of Saratoga in 1777, Revolutionary War. What is the battle of wood. What happens? Well, it happens, you can imagine, in a wood. In these grain fields, scattered woods. With bayonets, the Marines dig shallow fighting positions, which they could shoot from the prone position, laying down. In the afternoon of June 3rd, German infantry attacks the Marine positions in these grain fields, Bellawood area, with bayonets fixed. The Marines wait until the Germans were within 100 yards before opening deadly rifle fire that just mows them down. Very good rifle discipline. They don't panic. In one of their first kind of real big, the first big American engagements at the third aim, but this is like, they're getting involved. Americans always have good quotes, right? After the Marines were repeatedly urged to turn back, Marine Captain Lloyd W. Williams utters his now famous phrase, "Retreat! Hell, we just got here." Right? It sounds so American. Like Captain America would say that in some awful Marvel movie, right? On June 4th, Major General Bundy, commander of the 2nd Division, takes command of the American sector of the front, and the Marines continue to repel assaults. Why is this a big part of Marine mythology? There you go. Because, but for the Marines, the German offensive maybe keeps having life. It's the Marines. It's America. God bless America. Prone in cornfields, grain fields, shooting down the Germans. In the German counterattack, this gunnery sergeant, Ernest A. Jansen, becomes the first Marine to receive the Medal of Honor because he repels in advance by himself with a bayonet of 12 German soldiers. What a badass, right? This is so American. Like, I love being American for this reason. One guy with a bayonet basically stops the 12 German guys, right? More American quotes. As Bellawood keeps going, remember, it's all of June. It's June 1st, 26th. Okay? Another sergeant, Dan Daly, who has received 2 Medal of Honors for his service in the Philippines and San Domingo earlier. Remember Teddy Roosevelt, the Rough Riders, like late 1800s. He tells his men of the 73rd Machine Gun Company to go forward with this. Quote, "Come on, you sons of bitches. Do you want to live forever?" That's so American. We're going to die. Yeah, buddy. Let's go out, guns blazing, right? I mean, this is like, and God rest all their souls. Horribly sad, horribly tragic, so awesome, so American. And if you said next, and they put American bandanas on his head, the general like rode a Harley Davidson across the battlefield. Like, yeah, right? This is like Chuck Norris stuff, right? The Marines keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. Casualties sustained on one of these days are up to over 1,000 men on one of these awful days of fighting on June 6th, which anyone who knows American history, this is an anachronism, right? But what is June 6th, 26 years later? It's famous D-Day, right? 1944, storming the beaches of Normandy. So June 6th, you can say a very famous day in American military history that we know so much now about D-Day and the defeat of the Nazis and opening up the Western Front in the Second World War, but it's also this part of this Battle of Bellawood. Germans counterattack back and forth, back and forth. However, the Marines, by the late single digits, June 8th, 9th, hold about a football, have a foothold in Bellawood itself. The foothold, they're holding back the advance. This is where a German private, whose company had lost 90 of 120 people, 90 of 120 men, writes, quote, "We have Americans opposite us who are terribly reckless fellows." And coming from a German, that's about the highest compliment you could receive. Like, these guys are psycho, like in the best way. They're awesome soldiers. I didn't know what to expect. I grew up on the legends of Americans are cowboys with guns in farmhouses, and moms baked like, guns and apple pies and Civil War, like all these, stupid stereotypes. And High Noon, OK Corral, Wyatt Earp, keep going. And whatever, the Kid, Billy the Kid. These guys are good fighters, but they're good soldiers too. On June 26th, Major Maurice Shearer, writes back simply, like mic drop level, "Woods now U.S. Marine Corps entirely." Like, yeah, we got it done. Did it. America. That's where Pershing is like, these guys are so badass. And Chuck Norris is also at this battle. I had to add that in. Okay, so, all right. Another very famous battle, B7, is the Battle of Chateau-Thierry. Gosh, French is gorgeous, isn't it? Really, French is. A woman asked me yesterday, she's like, "How's my French class going?" I'm like, been so blessed with how this contingent of people at the World Web class, but French has been difficult because it's at a weird time for people sometimes. Becca, I had apologized to her profusely. She came to one of my French classes once, and I was having a meeting with someone, and Becca just left, and I was like, that was really sad. Made me feel bad.
You should hear what she says about you.
I can imagine.
Oh.
I deserve it. Becca, whatever you said, I deserve it. I deserve it. I hope there is some profanities there. I deserve that kind of harsh language.
We do need a photo of you for our dartboard. We do
Okay.
have one around.
Dartboard, what's dartboard? Oh, dartboard. You throwing darts at my face is acceptable. I think it's dartboard. I'm like, I don't want to be on a dartboard. That sounds really bad. Like, I'll be on a dartboard. Okay. Dartboards have like New World Order, like creepy Denver airport stuff. I don't want to be on an effing dartboard.
Dartboard of regions.
Yeah. But seriously, really, you just go like straight like Chateau Thierry, you know, just like, look, French is freaking. Like I want to do the rest of this lecture in French and have like just like and put subtitles in later. It's freaking gorgeous. I hate Fudge, honestly, it's so good. Dang it. July 18th, 1918 is the Battle of Chateau Thierry, Expeditionary Forces John Pershing. It's happening a month after Belleau, right? It's once more again, simply put, just where American troops are distinguishing themselves as slowing down and repulsing the German defenses. But guys, if you want to really go hard and really go to the point where it's important, go to B8, Battle of Amiens. August 8th. Okay, this is it. I want to freak out. I want to like scream. Like I want to like, this is it. The war is going to end now. Listen, Battle of Amiens commences the 100-day offensive. Last night, Kate and I were talking about this. Actually, my wife and I both love World War I. I've told you that many times. I wish she would teach this class. I think she'd probably do a better job. She knows it even better than I do, I think. And we were talking about this 100-day offensive and what it means. And what it means is from the Battle of Amiens, August 8th, 1918, which, please write this down or memorize it, the Black Day of the German Army. The day when the Germans realized we're done. Our goose is cooked. We're going to lose. We are going to lose. Those cowboy guys at Chateau Thierry and Belleau, they've shown their medal. We are going to lose. From August 8th, 1918 to November 11th is basically 100 days. And I would guess off the top of my head that it's 90 days, 3 months, but it's 100. It's extra 3 in here, there. It's about 100 days. Those last 100 days, you can just say very simply, is when the Americans finally move from, we've distinguished ourselves, we've held back the Germans. It's now us chasing the Germans down on the offensive, past the Hindenburg line, ending the war. What happens at the Battle of Amiens? Well, there's an attack of more than 10 Allied divisions. And how cool is this? Australian, Canadian, British, French, Americans around, all of the kind of like, all the German enemies are there. Through careful preparation, the Allies achieve surprise, and the attack led by the British actually breaks through the German lines, sowing panic, confusion, etc. Allies take over 17,000 prisoners, 339 guns. The Allies suffer 6,000 casualties. Remember, earlier in the war, Allies suffer 6,000, the Germans are going to suffer a fourth of that, 1,500. Allies suffer 6,000, Germans over 30,000. First time it's totally flipped. Ludendorff says, quote, Black Day of the German Army. All right. On August 10th, the Germans pull out of the salient they had managed to occupy it during Operation Michael back towards the Hindenburg line. And everything going forward is just straight pushback all the way until Armistice Day. Okay. On September 29th, there's a central attack of the Hindenburg line by the British Fourth Army again. Those same people broke through here on August 8th. By October 5th, the Allies had broken through the entire depth of the Hindenburg defenses. By October, keep in your mind, November 11th is surrender, so we're a month out now. General Rawlinson wrote, this is the British general, quote, had the Boche not shown marked signs of deterioration during the past month, I should have never contemplated attacking the Hindenburg line. Had it been defended by the Germans of 2 years ago, it would have been impregnable. Someone who's super brilliant, talk to me, tell me, help me. What does he mean? Why is this so brilliant? What's implicit here? Had it been defended by Germans of 2 years ago, we wouldn't be able to do it. What does he mean? All those stormtroopers are dead. Those are the guys doing it before. They're dead now. Operation Michael, that was the blowback. That failed, right? That's no longer apparent. October 8th, the 1st and 3rd British armies break through the Hindenburg line in the Second Battle of Cambrai. This collapse at Second Cambrai, October 8th, 1918, really shows the German high command we should start coming to terms. Armistice Day will come in effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918. I told you about Henry Gunther, very sad story. Henry Gunther dies at 10:59 a.m. in the last 60 seconds of the war by his own fault. May God have mercy on his soul. I pray Saint Henry Gunther, pray for us. I hope he's in heaven. As Father beautifully said on All Saints Day, everyone in heaven is a saint. So hopefully he can pray for us. If not, let's pray for him. If he's in purgatory, may he be released from purgatory soon. God rest his soul. His last moments on earth, it was his fault. And I'll repeat again, with all respect, I would never make light of this. He gets out of the trenches. He attacks the machine gun post when he's told, don't effing do that. The German guys there, to their credit, say stop, 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 right? How do you say stop in German? Just stop, 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 right? How do you say don't effing shoot us? How do you say that? And like, he doesn't listen. He doesn't listen, right? He starts firing at the guys. What are they going to do? I'm sorry, if I'm German, I'm not going to get killed for this guy. If this guy being a total moron, so they shoot him and kill him. And again, like, God rest his soul. God rest his soul a million times over. Maybe pray for his soul. Remember him when you pray for the souls in purgatory. Truly, I'm not being funny at all. Being dead serious. That's really sad. Like, what the hell, dude? And like, apparently he was angry that like he'd been demoted or something, want to prove himself. This is a really sad story. You know, to die literally within seconds of the war ending. But he's considered the last kind of casualty. I
How
mean,
old was he? You know?
I think he was kind of like my age. He wasn't super young, like 30s, 35, I think. I feel I'm not mistaken. There are a lot of quote unquote older soldiers. Like I remember even Kate and I were watching a documentary. She said to me when we were watching this, that I could have been like drafted because the draft age was 18 to 35 when the war even started. This is even before they got desperate. I'm 34 years old. So like I was still would have been considered like draft eligible. It's not like, oh, this guy was 51 or something like. But I think he was an older soldier. He wasn't like the prototypical soldier. I think World War I is a teenage kid, like 19, maybe 20, you know, young kid. Like I think he was already in his 30s. Very sad. Armistice Day, 1918. All right. Among its 34 clauses, Armistice contains the following major points: termination of hostilities in the Western Front, immediate evacuation of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Alsace-Lorraine within 15 days. So just like that, all the German success, all those miles they captured, gone, vanished. Immediate repatriation of all inhabitants of those 4 territories, surrender of material, evacuation of the territory of the west side of the Rhine, vacated territory to be occupied by Allied troops maintained at Germany's expense. No removal or destruction of civilian goods, all minefields on land and sea to be identified. That's a very beautiful kind of like brotherly love humanitarian point. Last thing you want is this thing to be over, to have more casualties after someone steps in the minefield. Like, let us know the war's over. Where did you booby trap stuff? All means of communication to be left intact, as well as everything needed for agriculture industry. How about on the Eastern fronts? Well, guys, what do you think is the most important Eastern Front thing? Of course, the renunciation of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. That great German victory in the East, gone, vanished in there too. And also the Treaty of Bucharest, Falkenhayn, the remaining, gone. Evacuation of German force in Africa. On the sea, immediate cessation of hostilities at sea, but sadly, the naval blockade of Germany to continue. In general, last 2 general points: immediate release of all Allied prisoners of war and interned civilians without reciprocity, pending a financial settlement, surrender of assets looted from Belgium, Romania, and Russia. And the war is over. We've completed the war class. I apologize to everyone. Actually, I don't give a flying. Fill in your favorite, whatever. I couldn't care less. I lost my thing. Maybe it was good. You win some, you lose some. That's life. We all started singing. It's a Frank Sinatra song. That's life. That's what all the people say on top in April, down in May, or some kind of crap like that.
Rather than you singing, I wanted to come back to something you said about Tolkien.
No. No,
I
stop.
looked him
I don't
up,
want to hear about this.
and he did indeed serve, and he was in the Battle of Somme. And that, in fact, according to Stingray, is where he began writing what was the book before the trilogy.
Thank you for that. That's
Yeah.
crazy, right?
So he was, you know.
He's in the thing. He's
Yeah.
in the worst of the worst spot. The Somme is awful, especially if you're a British soldier, as he was. There is nothing worse than the Somme. Dom, I'm gonna try to lower this down so you can see as well. Can everyone see the slides?
Yeah, this is technology.
This is tech and wait, Trish. Okay, you're gonna come that way. Okay, wait, keep going. You're gonna. I want to be out of your. All right, Dom, can you see okay from there?
Yep.
No, Dave, thank you so much for looking that up. I had already, sincerely, I'd already forgotten about Tolkien. And right, I heard though, like Mordor and the orcs and these things. Yeah, I mean, how could you not be shaped by that? In my own stuff that I like to write, I can't tell you how much, especially like the Hippo lectures a lot of you guys have come to. As you know, I'm so obsessed with this area. with the Palouse. I try to include the Palouse into everything. I just love it. I want to like eat this space. Like, oh, it's delicious. I love the rolling Palouse hills. I can't imagine how heightened all that must have been by serving in the freaking Great War. You know, like, of course it's going to influence his work later on. So thank you for confirming that. Okay, here we go. German Spring Offensive, Michael plus. Closer for the recording.
So this is specifically where? Amiens?
In, yeah, Amiens area, like just France, just the whole Hindenburg line, Western Front area.
That's a tank, right?
I think one that doesn't
I
work anymore,
suppose.
maybe, or maybe it's still going. Yeah, it's definitely a tank. I don't know if it's still operable. Maybe they're riding on it. I don't know. A lot of these photos, I mean, these are, I think, British soldiers, you know, convalescing after a gas attack. Very sad, very awful. A lot of these photos, they're all beautiful in their power, like sad, striking, but they could be applied anywhere. It's all World War I is the war that looks exactly the same. I mean, I could be like, oh, this is Passchendaele. Oh, this is Passchendaele. Actually, that's a horrible example because Passchendaele being the mud and the muck and the quagmire is actually exceptional. But you could say this is Second Champagne, Amiens. This is, you know, Battle of Frontiers. Like a lot of these are indistinguishable in what they look like. A lot of destruction, death. That guy's a stormtrooper. See, I'm not gonna lie, that guy looks really badass. Like if the U5 football came out with the U5 football should wear a gas mask as part of their helmet, and then say it's a COVID measure, that'd be awesome. You know how intimidating that would be if they had a helmet around that. That'd be freaking
Yeah,
like dirty.
That would be.
Have they like have this thing hang down like super low, like whatever that thing is. What's that thing on a rooster? What is that called? The rooster's thing that hangs down.
The crop?
I don't know, whatever that thing is, the giblet thing or whatever. They should have that like super low and like smack people with that. Like that is cool. Okay, Americans. There's the AEF, picture of the American Expeditionary Force. There's Blackjack Pershing. There's a card of a dude who's in the American Expeditionary Force. His name is what? What does it look like? EP, bad handwriting. Yeah. EP half signature and titular Edwin P. Hubble.
Edwin,
Oh,
yeah.
Edwin Hubble. Yeah,
Hubble.
there you go. Hubble
He
telescope.
he later got into telescopes.
Yeah, he's telescope guy. But seriously, right?
Yeah.
The brigade, the Marine Brigade in the woods of Bella Wood. That's what the Bella Wood look like. These are obviously, you know, pictorial representation. That's actual. It looks like on the whole Western Front, like the woods shelled to pieces, etc. Cemetery, Chateau Thierry, turning point in the war. Remember, Chateau Thierry is in July. It's a month after Bella Wood. L'avenir de l'Aisne means the future of Maine, like maybe like, you know, here's bright future thanks to the Americans coming in. And by the way, what's interesting too, the French do this. Le futur, like our word means future, it means just stuff that will happen. L'avenir means like what we look forward to. Like, so you would say like, if someone said, oh, that person, Sophia has a future as a concert pianist, you would use l'avenir, like something like more personal story, where future just means time-wise. Cool. It's cool. I learned that distinction recently. So this is all the more so like not only just future that, of course, there's going to be a future, a hopeful something good to look forward to, right?
What was that a monument?
I honestly don't know. I never want to, some kind of monument somewhere to on the Western Front. This shows my awful laziness and my horrible quality, where I post something that I don't know what it is. That's bad. I made these slides 2 weeks ago and I knew it when I posted it, but I forgot. So yeah, it's a monument to the fallen somewhere on the Western Front. That's it. Okay. And I don't know if you saw the little, never mind. Never mind. You guys, whatever. Bye. Happy Thanksgiving. See ya.